Howdy and welcome. I'm Mike, your board gaming every dude, and we are going to be looking at the top 5 detective board games. These come with multiplayer modes, so I'm going to rank them in order from my least favorite to my favorite of these 5, but these 5 means they're great games whether or not they're for me. But I also want to mention for the solo mode how it works for solo. But let's get through this fast. Let's go straight to number 5, which is going to be Decktective, a modern crime board game by Portal Games. Now, I no longer own my copy of this as I traded it on. If you are looking for this, this can be solo or multiplayer. Some people have called it Homework the board game, which makes it sound like a negative. It doesn't have to be negative, it depends what type of person you are. This is more of an experience than a game, so you are using a database that we can kind of see. Let's see if they show us in the pictures. No, what the pictures show us are the different options of the game, which we'll look at in a minute. But basically the base game idea is you will need a computer or phone or something to access an online database that you interact with while you try to solve a crime. You also have a board in front of you that marks time and days with some cards and some tokens. But basically you're doing a lot of reading, researching, and using your deduction skills. There is not a point where you win the game. You gather as much information as possible, and when time runs out, then at that point, you try to put together what you know to see if you solved the case. The game doesn't necessarily tell you that you solved it correctly or not. You just gather and solve with what you can. So it's important to know that going in. If you are into like having a whiteboard or like a pin board with strings connecting different things, that's what you're doing here. It is detective work, which I think is super cool. However, it didn't, the theme and the art actually didn't appeal to me. As I played, there are also different versions. There's Dune House Secrets, and I fully played through that, and I did enjoy it. The price point is around $40 or so, $40 to $35 to $50. It's somewhere in that range. I did enjoy it solo, but it feels more like a choose your own adventure experience to me. And some of the font on the cards that you read in the Dune detective game it's very small, very, very, very small. So you got to have good eyesight or magnifying glass. There is a new one. It's not, I won't show it right here, but Batman Everybody Lies, and that looks super cool. It's Batman. I mean, he is the detective, the world's greatest detective, and I can't speak to that as I haven't played it. But that would be number 5 for me. Not for me, but it's a great game for the right person. Number 4, I also don't have anymore. But Chronicles of Crime uses an app. I'll at least put the picture up here, and it comes in many different expansions. So the base game, I have played through every mission on it. It comes with downloadable content as well for the app, and I did not do that. I enjoyed the game, but what it is, you lay out your board and you have various locations based on the case you're trying to solve, as well as a deck of items that can be used to investigate and people to interrogate or speak with. And the game is based on time as a currency. So each time you ask a question of a person, investigate a location, or move to a location, or investigate a crime scene or an item, that takes minutes off the clock and you only have so much time to solve it. When the clock runs out, then you go into the app and you answer a series of questions to see how close you were to solving, and then you're given a score based on how well you did. I did so-so on my own. Some problems are the app can be a little glitchy because with the app you're scanning QR codes, and every now and then it took a while, like I was going in and out, so that was kind of annoying. The artwork is good. The artwork is good. It's nothing that really struck me, but it is nice looking. And it's cool when you go to a crime scene, you pull up your phone in the app and you get a 3D crime scene. Like you can move it around to look around at everything on the crime scene. So again, it's very cool. People love it. Multiplayer, I have not played it multiplayer. I don't know how it would be very different, other than maybe you take a turn like this. It's your choice to speak to someone and then pass it over, and the next person makes a choice. Or maybe one person is the scanner. I guess you could decide how it works, but it works fine solo. I don't see any reason to play it multiplayer really, but I did trade it on, and I haven't played any of the expansions. There's like a 19th century expansion, futuristic expansion, all kinds of expansions. But again, it just, for me, it didn't pique my interest enough, and I played through at least 10 cases. So it's a wonderful game. Obviously, it's won lots of awards, just like Detective, a modern crime board game, but awards don't determine whether I like a game, and I don't ever want to be that way with you. So it's number 4 because it's a fantastic game. Not my favorite. I probably will never buy it or play it again unless the interest is really piqued. But a lot of people like it, so maybe you would. But no, it's app dependent. That's what I want you to get from it, and that's no problem. It's a good app, just a little glitchy sometimes. Number three I still have. This is Little Box, and Chronicles of Crime is somewhere between $40 and $60, depending which ones you get. All right, Decktective, and there are several Decktective games. This is the only theme that I personally wanted, as it's a straight up murder mystery. The others go in more into supernatural type things, and you probably notice on this channel, nothing against it, just personally that's not for me, so you won't see a lot of those. Doesn't mean it's not a good game. That's just not something that I generally play, so it won't be featured. But this is a straight up murder mystery, The Will Without an Heir. I played this at 2-player and solo. And you can only play it once. That's something to know about the others as well. Each time you solve a case, it's one time through, and then you're done. All right. This one is one case. It's about $13, $10 to $15 for this box. And it's a 1 to 2 hour play. What do they say on here? 60 minutes? It's about 60 minutes. I enjoyed it more at 2-player. In my opinion, this is made for 2-player. You can play it solo. It's enjoyable. It's more enjoyable with 2 people. So keep that in mind. If you've got another person, this is so fun. With Decktective, the cool thing with this is you actually have a 3D crime scene that you set up. I'm actually not going to do it. I'll put a link to the video that I did to review this so you can look at it in the description below. But you just have a deck of cards. You set up a 3D crime scene with the cards, which is pretty fun. And what it is if you're playing with one person, you have access to all the information. If you're playing with 2 people, you each have your own set of cards, and you're only allowed to share so much of what you know. So you're each dealing with partial information to try and solve this case. And what you do is you have a choice of either keeping your card or discarding it and putting it in an archive. The more cards you have in an archive, the more information you can get. But the downside is the more cards that are in the archive, that's also information that you don't have access to. So you may have seen it, you put it in the archive, but the other person didn't get to see it. So you're both trying to decide without totally sharing all your information, and the game prevents you from doing that quite well. You get to the point, by the time you get to the bottom of the deck, then you have to answer a series of questions that are at the bottom of the deck, and you find out how close you were to solving the case. And there is one way to solve it, so you'll find out whether you got it or not, and you get points based on how close you were. And there's actually some cool side case as well for extra bonus investigation. But yeah, it really is just flip the card until you get to the bottom of the deck. But these cards come with their own clues, and then you got the 3D crime scene. So when I was playing it with my sister, interaction was fantastic. I loved it. If they do more themes that are more straight up murder mystery, I will buy every single one of these. Absolutely loved it. I would still buy it for solo, but as long as I have another person to play with, I will reserve these for 2-player. You can play with more than 2. That's just the experience I liked. It says 1 to 6, but yeah. So, fantastic. Love it. All right. Number 2 actually surprised me. I did not expect to like this one. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This is most similar to Detective Modern Crime board game, but this is more up my alley. This is all paper, and I have nothing against apps or websites. I actually I love some app-based games and some site-dependent games. I have no problem with that. But I do like all of the paper in this. So, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, you play as the Baker Street Irregulars, and you are trying to basically prove yourself to Sherlock by solving a case all on your own. And the way that you win is by scoring points. You score points based on how well you solve the case. So at the end of the game, you answer a series of questions that's similar to Decktective and Chronicles of Crime and Detective Modern Crime board game. They all do it. But you answer a series of questions and get a certain amount of points based on how, basically based on how long you took. But it's not based on time, it's based on leads. So in this game, each player, if you're playing multiplayer, then each player chooses to investigate one lead. And that could be like, I'm going to speak to the coroner, or I'm going to go to the crime scene, or I'm going to investigate the knife. Each one of those is one action, following one lead. The number of leads that you follow, the more leads that you follow, the lower your score. So you want to solve the case in as few leads as possible. But there's no time limit. So you can follow as many leads as you want or as many leads as you don't want. You as a group decide, I think we've got it, let's try and solve the case. At which point you flip to a booklet which lets you answer a series of questions to see whether you solved it, and there's a conclusion. You have a map of the City of London. You don't move anything around on it, but there are numbers. So what it is let's say I want to go to the British Museum. That is location 38. So you've got a booklet. This is the rules booklet. You have a booklet for each case. I believe there are 10 cases. How many cases are there? You've got 10 case booklets, yeah. So you go to your case booklet and you flip through and you look for that location number, and there's going to be some text for that. If it's not applicable to the case, then there's no number there. Then you just pick a different lead to follow. That brings us to reading. This game has a lot of reading. A lot of reading, a lot of reading. Very similar to Detective, a Modern Crime board game. These are the most similar to each other. Subjectively, I enjoy this one more. They are both solid games, and I'm not saying that to appease anybody, I just mean they really are. It's just Detective, a Modern Crime board game doesn't hit it for me. This one really nailed it. So playing multiplayer, it's good, you can have an assigned reader, or just when it's your lead, you do the reading. But there's enough going on. You've got your lead book here, you've got these papers, you've got these newspapers as well. Ugh, you can see all these case book. I just need to flip it upside down. It's case booklet. Oh no, that's secret envelopes. There's my newspapers. There we go. You got all kinds of, you've got the Carlton House map of a mansion. Depending which one you get. So Consulting Detective has several different games, none dependent on the other. I have Carlton House in Queen's Park. There's Jack the Ripper, Baker Street Irregulars, all kinds of stuff. But you also have these newspapers depending on how far along you are. It depends on how many newspapers you have. Newspapers may or may not have leads. There's red herrings galore. Then, other than the Carlton House, we also have the Queen's Park somewhere, and some kind of secret envelope at the very end. There's all kinds of stuff. You've got papers strewn all over, and you're investigating. That's all you're doing. Multiplayer, I actually prefer it multiplayer. I liked it at 3 people. That was fun. I would totally play this solo. You can, actually, you know what? I don't know that it shines any less solo. Solo and 3. 2 players, probably fun too, but I thoroughly enjoyed 3-player and solo. Just know if you're doing solo, you've only got your brain working, and it's a little harder because you don't have other ideas to bounce off. Like when I was playing, my buddy, he just like out of the blue was like, I wonder if something came in the mail that day. I wouldn't have thought of that, and it turns out that was a big deal. That totally changed the direction of our case. So it's super fun alone, make an evening of it, but multiplayer also, I just think it's a fantastic game. Thank you for making it, Gary Grady, Suzanne Goldberg, Raymond Edwards, and Space Cowboys. I loved it, and once I finish this, I will buy the next box so that we can complete that, which is going to take us to number 1. And if you're a follower of my channel, and thank you so much if you subscribe, I greatly appreciate it. You'll know all about this. If this is helpful, please give me a like, give me that thumbs up so other people can find this and this channel can grow and help more people find their love in board games, and more specifically, solo board games. Number 1, I'm going to tell you why. This is like $45, Sherlock Holmes. Detective City of Angels. This is $90. Why would this be number 1? You actually get the most bang for your buck. And this excels both solo and multiplayer. This game is a work of art in its gameplay, in its mechanics, in its artwork, in the love and passion put into just the map and the characters and the dialogue. This is not app dependent, and again, that's not a plus or minus for me, that's just something about the game. But it's $90, so you might be like, how is that worth it? We'll break down the dollars. Now, in this case, you do have 10 cases actually. You have 10 cases for $45. So for the amount of time spent, this is double the price of the 10 to 20 hours you spend playing this and the 10 to 20 hours you spend playing this. But if you consider a single campaign like this is $10 to $15, and this comes with 9 or 10 missions. I don't remember because I have expansions in here. 9 or 10 cases for you to solve, right? But that's if you do it solo. But here's the thing. You can solve a case solo and it's done. But then you can play it again multiplayer as the Chisel. And this game is then a one versus several. The Chisel is sort of like the storyteller, the game master, and the others play as the detective. So if you've solved it, play as the Chisel, because the Chisel knows the solution, and you get to either misdirect or help the detectives as they ask for information. So if you play as the Chisel, then the other players will be like, I want to ask Mrs. Graves this question, and they ask it, and you decide. You've got an option of 4 responses that you can give them, either helpful or totally misdirecting, and they have ways that they can force you to tell them the truth as well. So there's a lot of interaction going on there, but I love that you can play it solo, solve it, and then play it multiplayer again for a completely different experience on the same case. Love it. Even for solo only, paying $10 a case is worth it for me. That's a good 2 hour. It doesn't have to take 2 hours. I'm a slow player, but it's just, I have a whole video on this, so I won't go too much into it, but definitely check that out. But this is the map board, sort of similar to Sherlock Holmes, where you have locations that are numbered. However, you actually have a detective figure that you have to move around the board. So where these other games are, and this is not a negative, these other games are purely investigative. This also has gameplay involved. You have to move your character to a location, and that costs a turn. So you have a limited amount of time and turns. So you have to move to a location. Well, that's one action. So you start out with like 4 or 5 cubes per round. Well, that's 1 cube. And then your next action might be to search the location. Well, there goes another cube. You only have 2 cubes left. Choose wisely. So you have to follow your hunches in this game. The other games use time as a currency. I like that time is a currency because you only have so many rounds depending on the case and the number of players. But you also are moving around, and it costs you. I love that little extra touch. Comes with case books. If you're the Chisel, you have a Chisel book. And then you've got the case materials all come in a little box. Super cool stuff in there. I'm not going to show you everything, but there are lots of tokens in this game. I like that. Tokens, standees. So there's maybe 5 or 6 characters, where in the other games you might have pictures of characters, and that's great. I like that there are standees on the board at location, and you have to move to them, communicate with them, and when you're playing solo, the way it works is you have a book that you consult. So if you want to interrogate somebody, there is a number that's given you on the board and on your player board, and it just tells you go to number 123. Then you flip the book 123. There are so many possible combinations, you will not possibly get through that whole book. All right, and you better follow your gut. I like that this game rewarded following my gut, because when I did it, I did well. And when I tried to play by just like, well, ask this person every possible question, I bombed it. Nope. Choose wisely, follow your gut, be a real detective. So that's it. One thing to note about this, though, what does the age say? I think it says 14 plus. Yeah, 14 and up. You'll know, again, if you subscribe to this channel, I personally don't play, I guess you'd call them mature style games. Nothing against, a lot of them really appeal to me. I don't like strong profanity and things like that. That's just me. And so that's a flavor that might come across in this channel. There's some light profanity, but nothing very bad at all. It's 1940s pulp noir, but it doesn't go too far for me. It pushes about as far as I'm comfortable, but you should know that there is some lighter language, and if they use the word dick a lot, dick is detective. That's what that means. Totally different things. So I hope YouTube doesn't knock me out for that. But just so you know, that is it. Those are the top 5 detective games out there, in my opinion. All of them with a solo option, all of them with a multiplayer option. Do you agree? Are there other games you would put in this list? Actually, I want to show you real quick before we wrap up. There is a website that I'm a part of. I'm a part of the board game Nexus. You might know this. And I want to show you, if I can get my screen recording here. There we go. Screen recording. Good. Let's take a look at the board game Nexus. I just wanted to show you something you can do. If you go to the home page, you don't have to sign in for this. If you sign in, you get other benefits. But I'm doing this without signing in, and go to Explore, and then you could go to all games, but let's go by play style and then go to solo. And this is in beta testing, so please also be a little bit forgiving. This is just the beginning, but let's go to solo, and then we're going to go to deduction, product categories, and deduction, because detective games are part of the deduction family. So check deduction, and you can see there's 17 games in the system right now that would fall under deduction. There's more that will be added in time, but there are some, if you look, there are some additional games that would be deduction, like Black Sonata. It's not a detective game, but it does involve deduction. But if we keep going down, you can see Chronicles of Crime in there. This Escape Tales, that's one I'm not familiar with. But anyway, you can look in here for some other deduction games to see if there's something that fits your fancy. And that is it. Let's check out this next video. Actually, I'm going to link you to my reviews of Detective and some other games like that. I love you all. See you next time.